Hey everyone, this is Lolcohol, and in this video we are going to be discussing Ultimatum League. So the new league coming out is going to be sort of gambling focused, where you're going to have an option between choosing a reward and walking away safely with your life and your reward, or pushing it further, trying to get a better item, but at the risk of losing everything and getting killed in the process. I am a huge fan of these types of medium core mechanics where there's something on the line, you've got something that you're risking, and there's a bit of a thrill in pushing your luck and seeing how far you can get. And you know, if you're successful, you win, you get something great, but if you lose, it gets your blood racing. And this is something that is so fun about hardcore, but it's not something that we often get to experience as softcore players. So I love that part of the league mechanic. And a lot of you might be thinking, it's gambling, it's not going to be fun, this sucks. But the thing that you need to know, even though there is risk involved, this is going to be more of a test of your limits, understanding your build, seeing how far you can push it, and then learning over time what you can handle, what you can't handle. And eventually you're going to figure it out. You're going to say, okay, these mods, these are going to kill me. I'm not going to push my luck. Let's just walk away with this and keep it safe. But knowing that you can push it and keep pushing it a little bit and having a potential of a really good item at the end, I think is great. Another great thing about Ultimatum League, I think, is the Inscribed Ultimatum. So how this works is it's something you put in your map device. It opens an area, and what you get is a choice. So it'll say something like, it will double your currency that you put in. So you'll put in an exalt or 5 exalts, maybe even 10, we'll see. And then you'll put it in, hit the button, and then a whole lot of monsters will attack you. And if you succeed, you'll double your money. So you'll get 2 exalts or 10 exalts. That's great. But of course, if you lose everything. Again, talking about the medium core mechanic, some of these are going to be better than others. And what's also nice is that they are tradable. So if you find that you are not willing to risk a stack of exalts, just sell it to someone. If there's something that says double 5 exalts, you can probably sell it pretty easily for 4 exalts. Someone who can do it will buy it from you. So that's still a thrilling thing to do and to be able to find, because even if you can't do it and you're playing Trade League, you can sell it to someone who can do it. So overall impressions, even though the league doesn't look that complex, I was hoping for something a little closer to Betrayal or Synthesis. This looks very similar to Ritual. The added medium core mechanic is something that I'm super into, and I think there's going to be a lot of fun with this. So that being said, there is also a massive overhaul to existing content, and without this, I think this league, it might have been something that you burn out on after a month or so. I don't know if it has that much depth, but the changes to the existing content is excellent. What they're doing is essentially giving leagues their identity back by making league-specific rewards focused on those leagues. So if you want something like fossils, you're going to have to go delve. If you want incursion mods on your items, you're going to have to do incursions. If you want blighted things, you go do blight and abyss and so on. That's great. Having identities in leagues is very important. I think a problem that was starting to happen was that, let's say you wanted to farm fossils. What would you do? You'd probably go farm Legion or Rituals. You would do anything except delving. So even though it's going to be harder to come across these items yourself, I think it's going to make target farming specific things more rewarding, especially in Trade League. If you are the one person, or let's say part of a small group of people who want to do delve farming, and that's what you're going to be focusing on, then you're going to be rewarded more, because fewer players are going to be finding things like pristine fossils and prismatic fossils, things that people use a lot. because we're not all just randomly finding them in Delirium and in Legion and what have you. Another big change is that any monster in the game can now drop pretty much any item. This includes League-specific items such as Headhunter. So it sounds like GGG wants to have that feeling of anything can drop. I could get a mirror from any monster. It could just happen out of the blue and suddenly my entire league has changed. It's much more exciting. And previously, if you weren't doing something like Nemesis content, you would never really feel excited if a leather belt fell on the ground because you just say, it's probably a worm smolt, whatever. You wouldn't even bother picking it up. But now, every time a leather belt drops on the ground, you're going to get a little thrill because you think it could be a headhunter and you're going to check. Maybe it will be one day. The thing is, it's probably still going to be super rare. You're probably never going to find one. However, more people are going to find headhunters. There's going to be a greater number in the market, I would assume. So this means that there will be a reduce in price, I'm hoping. You know, there's going to be more supply, so there's going to be more competition, and hopefully that will drive down the price slightly. It's a bit hard to say, but that's my guess. Another thing that I really like is the idea of boss runs. So those of you who've played Diablo 2, you know that a great thing to do to farm is to just do boss runs over and over. You kill Baal or Mephisto or Diablo, and they have a much higher chance of dropping unique items, so it makes sense to actually just go and farm the boss over and over. And it might sound a bit boring, but it is actually quite exciting, you know, getting that boss close to death and then they die and then they drop something and maybe it's bad, but having this buff to boss drops is going to make that a legitimate strategy, especially before maps. I think it's going to be something that you should take a look at doing. Don't just completely overlook it, but we'll test it out and see. As for the Reliquary Keys, this is cute. It's not something you're probably going to find. They said it's going to be even rarer than the previous ones. In past leagues where they were Reliquary Keys, I played a fair amount and I only found a couple. So yeah, you might find one. And if you do, I would recommend, if you are not into gambling, sell it. Someone who's silly, who likes gambling and having fun with more money, will gladly buy it from you. It's unlikely to yield profit, but it's a nice little addition to the game. And it's nice having those sort of past mechanics coming back, as sort of a nostalgic trip. And something to add also is that every item that can come out of the Vile Reliquary chest is going to have the same weight, which is very cool, meaning that the rarest item is as likely to drop as the least rare item, so that adds to the thrill of it if you're going to do it. I need to go through the actual Vile uniques because only Vile uniques are going to drop from that Reliquary key. I'm not sure which ones are good, which are bad. We'll have a look and figure it out. The new uniques are pretty interesting. I'm not going to go into too much detail with those. Glimpse of Chaos, pretty interesting. If you can mitigate the loss of resistance, it could be a big buff to life. Also, it has a stat that says Chaos resistance is 0. Now, I'm going to assume that this means that you're still going to have minus 60 Chaos res. However, if it sets it to 0, just flat 0, even after you've had Kitava's Curse put on you, it kind of could be a bit of a buff almost, because then if you have 0 Chaos resistance on your gear and it pushes it up to 0, instead of being at minus 60, you'll have 0. So it's kind of like 60 to Chaos resistance. I'm not sure it's going to work like that though. Don't hold me to it. Also, you can repeatedly corrupt it, and it might change into another unique helmet. So it's going to be interesting. I don't think it's going to be particularly valuable, but we will see. The vendor recipes. There's going to be some new vendor recipes. That's cool. I look forward to trying to figure those out. Maybe there'll be one that is really, really secret and really strong, and if you figure it out, you might be a meanie pants and not tell anyone and make a lot of money from it before anyone figures it out. I mean, it's not going to really affect the game hugely unless someone discovers something like maybe there's an Exalt recipe that you can figure out and then they share it, but it might be fun to work out, and depending on what types of recipes they add, it could be huge, it could be not that meaningful, but I am excited to search for them, and I'm excited for people to find them and share them with the rest of us, hopefully. Another absolutely wonderful change that we've been asking for years is the lab. Now, if you do the Eternal Lab, you will be shown your potential outcomes before you click the button. And for helmets, it's going to give you an option of 3 different helmet enchants. This is going to make lab farming really strong, because in the past, lab farming was a very niche thing that some people did and they made a fair amount of money from it. But now, if you want to get into lab farming, I still don't think it's going to be that popular. But if you get into it, you're basically getting 3 lab runs for every run you do. So keep an eye out for that. That could be a very profitable farming strategy next league. As for beasts, rip duping. This is going to make acquiring very nice 6-link bases a lot harder to acquire. It's mainly a nerf for the people who would rush to create a good base and then sell copies to other players. But something that does suck about it is that it's going to make beastcrafting a little bit worse, especially when you're trying to do imprint split crafting. That's quite complicated. For those of you who know what that is, sad. But what can we do? I'm not going to go over every new change to every previous league mechanic, but what I will say is that this is an excellent addition to Echoes of the Atlas. I think if they had made these changes before Echoes, it wouldn't have been as impactful. But now, because you can add Atlas passives and change things and target farms so effectively with Scarabs and Atlas passives, the fact that they have reworked the rewards and mechanics of some of the past leagues means that pretty much whatever you feel like doing is going to be great. It's going to be strong. So no longer will you feel like, oh, I'm doing the wrong thing. I want to do Abyss, but Delve is the best thing, and I'll just do Delve even though I don't want to. Now, pretty much whatever you do, even if it's not necessarily the optimal strategy, it's going to be worth your time. So all of the changes are excellent. Things like Incursion, we're going to be able to sell completed temples. So if you enjoy running temples, you can go out and buy them from other players on the market. Or if you like setting up temples, you could focus on that part of the Atlas, then farm up some temples and then sell it to other players. There's just so many little things that you can do. As for Delve, another thing to mention, they've nerfed very deep delving, which is weird because it was a very niche, small community doing that. But they did buff the rewards for the average Joe. So I think that's a very nice change. As for Harvest, they increased the spawn rate by 60%. That's all I'm going to say about that. Let's not forget about Betrayal and Unveiling. Finally, they have buffed Unveiling in general. So now we are going to have access to something called the Veiled Chaos Orb, which rerolls an item, but then also adds an Unveiled mod to it. So this should make unveiling and finding all the different crafts easier. Hopefully these Veiled Chaos Orbs are not too rare. My guess would be they're going to be kind of level of rarity, so not too common, not too rare. Later in League, they're going to be probably cheaper than earlier on. Another thing is that Unveiling is better, so Unveiled mods are going to be buffed versions of the Benchcrafted mod. So I don't know if that's really gonna be a thing that's useful later on, but I guess it's cool, and at least it's going to be easy to find all those recipes. One thing that does kind of suck is that they seem to imply that they are nerfing some of the bench crafted tiers. Why they would do that, I don't know. It would be cool if they just made the unveiled versions more strong, especially doubling on with the harvest nerfs. I don't know if that was a great decision, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Oh, and the new catalysts are very strong. There's one that increases speed modifiers on your jewelry. That's great. But the one that increases critical modifiers, broken completely. That's going to be ridiculous. Let's say you've got an amulet with 38% crit chance and 30-something% crit multi, and then you increase that by 20%. That is like another 6 to 8%. It's not a ton, but it'll be noticeable. So Those are two very nice catalysts that are probably going to be fairly rare and fairly valuable, and I think it's a nice little change to Metamorph. Next up, Talismans. Finally, this has been something that has been bothering me for years and years. Talismans are too strong. They've been dropping with too many good mods and too many great anointments, and it's far too overpowered. Okay, I'm trolling. I have no idea what they were thinking when they did this. I think I've maybe found one good talisman since they did that, and it looked good, and it didn't sell. And I don't think I've really ever picked up a talisman that I've kept using very late because you cannot apply quality to it. The anointment, now you can change with the little corrupted vial, but not having quality and not having access to influence modifiers means that it's inherently at a kind of lower tier, and they nerfed it? Like, okay, whatever. Let's quickly talk about the new skill gems. These are primarily focused on blood and using life instead of mana for skills. They also changed the threshold for low life. So previously your reserved life would have to be, or your life would have to be below 35%, whereas now it's 50%, meaning that your low life will trigger more easily while you have more life. So pretty much in the past, you would always go low life and reserve most of your life and then use energy shield as a life source instead. But now you might actually be able to have life and do low life and kind of sustain it at a low level with some of the new skill gems. I'm not going to go over all the skill gems. You can check it out on the video. But the one that stood out to me is Bloodthirst, which is a support gem. This could be really strong. Essentially what it does is it adds physical damage with weapons equal to 2% of max life when on low life, and it adds 10% more physical damage. That is at level 1. So depending on how that scales, that could be really good. Also, I'm not sure if that added physical damage with weapons is flat or percent. I would assume it's percent. But let's say that scales up to 10% of your max life while on low life. I don't know, maybe that's a bit crazy, but if you have 5,000 life, 2% of that would be 100% increased physical damage. That seems kind of strong to me if I'm understanding that correctly. We'll see. I'm really liking the look and theme of all of these new skills, so I might even league start with one of them, and if I find something that looks interesting, I'll share it with you. But it's going to be risky. Every time they release a new skill, it's either going to be terrible and you're going to regret your decision, or you're going to league start with it and it's completely broken and it'll be the best decision you've ever made because it's too late for them to nerf it and they haven't realized that it's broken yet. So you'll be able to league start with something that shouldn't really be in the game in its current state. Overall, I think this is going to be another great league for Path of Exile. If it weren't for all the changes to previous league content, I would be less thrilled about it. The Ultimatum content looks fun. It looks like it's going to be a good time, but I don't think it's going to be enough to carry a league for 3 months. However, all the other stuff that they've added in conjunction with the Echoes expansion, that is going to be the main thing that's going to keep this going. Maybe for 2 months. I'm thinking I'm probably going to be able to play this for 2 months. Fingers crossed. Anyway, hopefully I haven't missed anything. Let me know in the comments below what you think about these changes and about the Ultimatum League. Do you like the idea of risking everything for a chance to get something better, or do you just hate the idea of potentially losing everything if you fail? Have a wonderful day, everyone. Take care, stay safe in Path of Exile and in real life. Bye-bye.
Divine power! Divine power! It's branching, Exile. You're making me nervous.